ignored by someone you considered your everything is like having to learn to live again from scratch. Pain, despair, emptiness, those feelings flood in like waves, making you think you can never breathe normally again. Each person faces this pain in different ways. Some hide their emotions, pretending to be strong so as not to be pitied. Others let themselves sink into grief, self-blame, and self-torment. But whether we try to be strong or weak, in the end, the pain still gnaws at every part of our soul, leaving scars that are difficult to heal. I used to be like that, trying to appear calm, but inside there was a sea of raging waves. Tortured myself with unanswered questions. But then I realized that sometimes what we need to do is not find a way to get rid of the pain immediately, but to let it exist, to let it become a part of us. Then little by little, silently let go. Silence is not giving up, but a way for the soul to rest, so that we no longer chase after painful emotions. And perhaps it is that silence that surprises others. They think they can ignore you, that you no longer being by their side is easy, but then when your silence appears, no reproach, no clinging, simply no longer there, they begin to feel empty, regretful, as if they have missed something that they have missed. There's no way to get it back. That's how I got through silence, to heal myself and to let the other person know that they no longer have the right to hurt me. I won't keep you waiting long. I will share with you the first reason. Number 1, her illusion of power is extinguished. When faced with being ignored, you and I both know that the feeling of loss and helplessness is inevitable. But did you know the power she once held was just an illusion? I gave her the right to determine my happiness, to let her control my emotions as if my life depended entirely on her. It was a false empowerment that I created, and she unwittingly took it, thinking it was real. But then, one day, I realized that that power did not exist. I was the one who had the power to decide my emotions. And from then on, I began to remain silent. My silence is not a surrender, but a way to regain self-retreat. When you are silent, you no longer let others see that they can hurt you. You gradually extinguish the illusion of power they once held. She thought she could control me, could make me suffer. But when my silence appeared, no clinging, no reproach, no sign of weakness, she began to feel lost. That feeling is ironic when a person thinks they have power, but in the end discovers that power is gone. It was a moment of both pain for me and liberation for both of us. You know, that was the moment she realized she no longer had control over my emotions. Silence is a powerful tool, not for revenge, but for self-healing and affirming that you no longer depend on others to feel valued. When you and I choose to be silent, that is when we take back our power, forcing the other person to face the truth that they no longer have the ability to hurt us. That is true power. Their illusion of power has been extinguished, and all that remains is regret, which they may never get back. Number 2, the spectacular upstream swim. When someone leaves, it feels like the whole world is collapsing, nothing left to keep you standing. I also used to fall into that feeling. The emptiness and despair surrounded me, making me think that I would be forever stuck in that darkness. But then, one day, I decided not to let myself continue to wallow in negative emotions. Swimming upstream is not always a victory over others, but a victory over yourself. That's when I decided to stop seeking comfort from others and start rebuilding my own peace. Rebuild your life from the smallest things: a morning jog, an afternoon reading your favorite book, or even just moments of sitting still and listening to the wind outside the window. Those seemingly ordinary things helped me rediscover the simple joys and meaning of life that I had forgotten before. They are not big, but day by day they fill the void in my soul, turning the pain into a thing of the past, no longer holding me captive. You know, sometimes swimming upstream is not about going back to what was lost, but about overcoming them, to find yourself a new and stronger version. When you decide to stand up, not to let yourself sink deep into suffering, you have really done what few people can. You have swum upstream from the darkness to move towards the light, and then that strength will make them realize that you have changed, have gone beyond their reach, and that they are the ones who have lost something precious. Number 3, her belated regret. When you remain silent and no longer cling, the other person will begin to notice the change. At first, they may think that breaking up with you is easy, that they can move on without you. They believe that their life will go on as usual, and losing you is not too difficult to overcome. They believe in their own strength, in the feeling of freedom that they think will make them happy. But then, one day, when your silence persists, no messages, no calls, no more complaints or pleas, they begin to feel a void. That's when belated regret begins to gnaw at them. Things they used to take for granted, moments they were familiar with, now become strange. They begin to wonder if the decision to leave you was really the right one. They remember the good things you brought, from simple joys to the peace that only you can bring. Sometimes, absence is the only thing that can help people realize the true value of what they once had. And that makes them hurt, the feeling of knowing that they have lost something and now there is no way to get it back. This regret is not the goal you aim for when you choose to remain silent, but it is an inevitable consequence. Silence is not for revenge, not to make others suffer. It's the way you protect yourself from the spiral of dependence and suffering, the way you maintain your respect and self-esteem. When you are silent, you no longer allow the other person to continue to drag you into negative emotions. You decide not to be controlled by anyone else, no longer an actor in the play they have staged. And that's when they begin to understand that they have lost something that they cannot replace with anyone else. They will wonder about the days when you were by their side, about the kind words you once spoke. They will remember the times you patiently listened, comforted them in difficult times. They will realize that what they took for granted, not everyone can bring. They will face a belated awakening when they realize your value is not something easily obtained. But by the time they understand, it's too late. That is the power of silence. It is not a resounding victory that everyone sees, but a gradual awakening that the other person cannot avoid. Silence is not a punishment for the other person, but a liberation for yourself. You have chosen to protect yourself, chosen to no longer torment, no longer blame. And now, they are the ones who have to face the loss. They will look back, regret, and understand that you are something special, something they were not sober enough to realize in time. My advice to you is don't be afraid of silence. Don't be afraid of not holding on to someone. Sometimes silence is the most powerful voice, the only way to affirm that you are worthy, strong enough not to need to depend on anyone. Let them feel the void when you are no longer by their side, and let them wonder what they have missed. That belated regret is theirs, and you have chosen the path of freedom, the path for those who know how to appreciate their own worth. Number 4, silent stage. Who is the director? When someone chooses to ignore you, it's like a play they are forced to end, leaving others feeling confused and empty. I used to believe that the other person was the director, the one who held all the power, deciding the course of our story. But then, in the long nights of silence and loneliness, I realized that it doesn't have to be that way. I don't need to be an actor in someone else's play. I can be the director, the one who rewrites the script for myself. Silence is how I decide to change the story. Instead of continuing to act according to the other person's script, I chose to step off the stage and give myself a moment of silence. I no longer react the way they want, no longer express pain for pity, no longer immersed in the feeling of being abandoned. I choose silence to regain control of my life. That silence is not weakness, but a powerful statement. I no longer let others decide my emotions. I am the director of this play, and only I have the right to decide how it will continue. There is a saying like this: in silence, we can find ourselves and understand more about what is going on inside us. By the author, Rumi. Before I just listened and knew it, but when I think about this saying, I find it completely true. When I am silent, I no longer let the judgment of others control me. No more explanations, no more clinging or blaming, only silence. That's how I refuse to participate in the emotional game that the other person deliberately created. And that's when the other person begins to feel insecure, realizing that they no longer have control over me. They can no longer direct this stage, no longer have any power to control how I feel or how I should behave. My silence has turned the tables, turning them from director to audience, who can only stand outside and watch how I move on without them. This stage belongs only to me, and I have decided to rewrite it the way I want. That's how I overcome pain, by being silent to assert independence, to regain control, and to decide the course of the story myself. My advice to you is don't let anyone else hold the power to control your emotions. Step off the stage they have created and become the director of your own life. Let silence speak for the pain and show them that you are strong enough not to need to depend on anyone. Number 5, she is curious and wants to reconnect. When you are silent, you create a space, and that space becomes unpredictable to the other person. They start to miss you. They feel something is no longer familiar, and curiosity begins to creep in. They want to know why you no longer cling, no longer show suffering. They begin to feel insecure, and then they are the ones who want to regain the lost connection. When she wanted to reconnect, I was no longer the weak version of myself that I used to be. I have learned to love myself more. learn to find happiness from the little things around me without the need for recognition from anyone else. The interesting thing is, when you no longer need the other person to feel valued, they start to find you more attractive. This change is not a ploy, but the result of self-healing and maturity. I have learned to stand on my own without having to rely on anyone, and that makes her feel curious and regretful. But my advice to you is not to expect the other person to come back. Your silence should not be aimed at making them regret, but should be a way for you to protect yourself, to allow time and space to heal. If they come back, it's just a consequence, not a goal. The most important thing is you. You have to understand that your value does not lie in the recognition from others, but in the respect and love from yourself. Number 6, the art of not reacting. There is a pretty magical thing that happens when you decide to stop reacting to someone else's coldness. At first, you feel like you are going against your natural instincts because your heart craves attention, craves explanation, and craves healing. But then, when you choose to do nothing, choose to no longer text, no longer try to reach out, it makes them think. Silence and keeping your distance is not weakness, but a powerful act. You are giving them space, but at the same time giving yourself a chance to regain your balance and your own worth. Keeping distance is an art, and it requires great patience. The person you once loved may not initially notice this change. They may be indifferent and think that you have given up, that you no longer care. But then, when the distance persists, they will begin to feel your absence, begin to realize that you are no longer there as a matter of course. That's when curiosity and regret gradually arise in their hearts. Suddenly, they realize the things you once brought to them, love, support, late-night conversations, are all gone. And that makes them insecure, makes them wonder if they have really lost you. Keeping your distance is not about revenge, but about giving them time to realize your worth. At the same time, this is also an opportunity for you to focus on yourself, to take care of yourself, and rebuild your self-belief. The times you used to spend all on the other person now become time for you to explore new hobbies, forgotten passions, or simply enjoy the peace. And when you start to find yourself again, you will realize that the pain is no longer as great as you once thought. The art of not reacting and keeping your distance is the way for you to regain respect from others, but most importantly, from yourself. Remember that you don't have to prove your worth by clinging to someone who no longer wants to stay. When you no longer try to reach out, no longer let yourself be an easy option, that's when the other person will realize that they have really missed something very special. And if they don't realize it, then at least you have also found yourself a stronger and freer version, no longer dependent on the presence of others to feel valued.